All right, so we're going to work on getting all of the unit circle's key values in one place. This is an effective way to memorize some of these answers from the unit circle. So first off, let's label all of the degrees, the main angles of the unit circle. First, we're going to start at 0 degrees, and then we can also say 360. It's both 0 and 360 degrees. And then think about your special right triangles. So our special right triangle angles we've talked about are 30, 45, and 60. And of course, we got our four corners. We've got 90, we've got 180, we've got 270 at the bottom. But to get the rest of these angle measures, this next angle measure right here in quadrant number 2 is just going to be 90 plus 30. And then we're just going to go right down that list. And then it's going to be 90. I'll write it out up here, but I don't encourage you to do that. And then it's going to be 90 plus 45 and 90 plus 60. And you can kind of see where we're going. Third quadrant, it's going to be 180 plus 30, 180 plus 45, and 180 plus 60, and so on and so forth. So now we've done all the angle measures. So the next thing we want to do is we want to convert all of these degree measures to radians. If you remember, to go degrees to radians, we're going to multiply the degree times pi over 180. So you need to do that several times, and although this is probably the longest step of this whole process, in the long run, this will make things a lot easier. So I'm not going to work all these out, but the first angle measure is 30. We multiply that by pi over 180, and that should end up producing to 1/6 pi, or pi over 6. So go ahead and fill in all the radian measures, and then we'll do the last step. All right, so there are all the radian measures. Okay, finally we're going to do the ordered pairs. Couple of things. First off, keep in mind that the x and y coordinates change signs, obviously, depending on what quadrant we're in. So in quadrant number 1, just go and write it out, the x and the y are both positive. In quadrant number 2, the x is negative, the y coordinate is positive. Quadrant 3, both the x and y are negative. In quadrant 4, the x is positive, but the y is negative. So you still have to know your special right triangles for 30, 45, and 60. But we've done that in a previous video, so let's go back to our answer. And here were our answers at the sign of 30, 45, and 60. So let's fill those back in the unit circle. But you have to be able to do these 3 problems using special rights before you can use this shortcut I'm about to show you. So I filled in the ordered pair at 30 degrees, radical 3 over 2, 1/2. Honestly, that may be the only one you need to do math on. Because 45 degrees, most of us can just remember that 45 degrees, we end up with the same cosine and same sine value of radical 2 over 2. And then 30 and 60, we saw from the example from earlier, the x and y coordinates are just switched. So the ordered pair at 30 degrees, 1/2 was the y coordinate. It now becomes the x coordinate. So that means the y coordinate at 60 degrees is radical 3 over 2. So these two values have just been switched at 60 degrees. 90 degrees is easy because we've gone up 1 unit. So the y coordinate is changed to 1. The x-coordinate hasn't changed at all. So 0, 1 are the coordinates. And then we're going to use the idea of reference angles to get the rest of these ordered pairs very quickly. So think about the next angle, 120, and think about what its reference angle is. Its reference angle is 60 degrees because it's 60 degrees from the x-axis. I wouldn't write this on your paper because it'll get too messy. But that means 120 degrees should have the same reference triangle as 60 degrees, which would imply you're going to get the same numbers at 120 that you got at 60. The only difference is, since we're in quadrant number 2, the x-coordinate is negative. And then we can use this trick for every other angle. 135 is 45 degrees from the x-axis. So it's going to be negative radical 2 over 2, radical 2 over 2. And then 150 degrees is the next angle. It is exactly 30 degrees from the x-axis. So it's negative radical 3 over 2, comma 1/2. 180 is easy because we've just gone 1 unit to the left of the origin, so negative 1, 0. Now I would encourage you to see if you can do the rest of these using the idea of the reference angle. So figure out what the reference angle for the next angle is, 210 degrees, and that will give you the XY ordered pair. So quadrant 3 is done. Keep in mind the x and the y's are both negative in this quadrant, which we're not talking about tangent in this video, but that means tangent would be positive in the third quadrant because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. Try the last quadrant. And then there's the rest of our unit circle. So the really handy thing about this unit circle, once you have it all filled out, is now when we go back to a problem like we just covered, say we didn't have the answer of 240 degrees, if they ask us what the sine of 240 degrees is, well, we can just come down and look at our filled out unit circle and find 240 degrees, and we see the y coordinate at 240 degrees is negative radical 3 over 2. So that tells us the sine of 240 is negative radical 3 over 2. Likewise, the cosine of 240 would be the x-coordinate, so it would be negative 1/2. Now there's no easy way still to do tangent. To do tangent of 240, you still have to take the y-coordinate and divide it by the x-coordinate and go through that whole process to get the answer. So you still have to show all your work there. But sine and cosine, if you have your unit circle, your answers are all right there. And the same goes for if they give it to you in radians, like they did on part B here. You can look at your unit circle, find 5 pi over 4. 5 pi over 4 is right next to 240. And you see your cosine value is your x, and your sine value is your y.